Yo, 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 yo. Visualize shark takes, hit the wave grinding. In the chat, gun shark odds make it rhyming. Sunday vibes, smooth bets, no confining. Hats engaged, can't stop us from shining. Bet on the spread, liking it, keep it tight. Push the odds further, jack on a hindsight. Odds fellows mind grasping the right sight. Hats, caps on heads, winners in plain sight. Hit the light, get in the chat, feel the flow, cash it, every dollar see the bankroll. Sunday grind and picks, now you gotta know. Extra points on the screen, sharp minds always glow. Big parlays, predictions we home. Standing tall, betting knowledge all.
On a suddenly not so casual 7-point Sunday in January, it is NFL The Extra Points, the big show, Wildcard Weekend. Part 2 on this Sunday. It is Sunday, January the 12th, 2025. The Shark, the Gun, and the Odds Fellow right here live on Sharky Waters Nation X and YouTube and the Guns Picks channel. Come on over to the chat. Drop your plays. We will interact with you guys. We split yesterday. We got 3 games today. We're talking Monday Night Football as well. Guns Picks. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, went 2-1. I think even Oddsfellow hit his total on that one in the Baltimore game. The other total, though, with the Houston one, kind of fell apart there at the end. But I digress. We move forward. We actually had a really good game, good start to the wild card weekend, and now we're going to go into the Sunday card. And we have a lot of alignment today, a lot of collaborations, 3-way, and I can't wait to break that down with you guys. Get into the chat, join us, drop your plays, drop your props, drop everything, and we have the Odds Fellow with the backwards hat. Yankees in the background, the number 2-1 I can see there. What is going on this beautiful Sunday morning, Odds Fellow?
I'm trying to figure out when the news is going to drop that Mike McCarthy is no longer the Cowboys coach, because Vrabel's already off the board. But this is what we're doing today. This is what we're worrying about today. Let's have some fun.
Not waiting around. We got 3 games today, 1 tomorrow. We're going 1 o'clock, Orchard Park, New York. AFC wild card, Josh Allen, campaign 7, Bo Nix, campaign 1, rookie quarterback on the road, Mountain Time. This is an 11 a.m. kick for the Broncos on their body time. A lot of difficulty here, a great conversation to ensue. And the Gun, the first official of this show, Buffalo, first half, -5.5.
Yeah, I don't mind the game on this one, but, you know, as I see the line drop, I feel there's going to be maybe some chicanery going on here in Orchard Park. But let's talk about the first half here. Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, where there'll be a lot of mustard and ketchup on some old guy in a Pinto. And then we're going to have guys jumping on tables, breaking them before the game. It is going to be an electric time there in New York. But let's talk about this game. When you look at Denver, Denver's a home team. They don't necessarily do that well on the road. They have a 0-point differential, -27 net yard average, 4-5 straight up, 6-3 against the spread, but 1-4 straight up in their last 5 road games, and those were against all playoff caliber teams. We're talking about Baltimore, KC, the Chargers, and the Cincinnati Bengals. And then you got to look at Buffalo at home. They've just been absolutely exceptional, dominating left and right with a plus 16-point differential, plus 67 net yard average. They're 8-0 straight up, 5-3 ATS at home this season. Denver has regressed as of late, if you've actually looked at their numbers, and they basically survived on getting turnovers. Throwing out their last game, because that was kind of a nobody's playing game. KC didn't really care, so I'm going to throw that out as the outlier here. Denver's been outgained in 5 straight by an average of 101.6 yards per game. But Denver has won the turnover battle in 4 out of those 5 games, which has been the difference for this team. Now, Buffalo is a team that doesn't turn over the ball a lot. You've seen Josh Allen really improve, not throwing a lot of turnovers. They're number 1 in the league in giveaways per game. They don't give away a lot of turnovers. So that's going to kill one of the strengths of the Denver defense. Then you got to look at Buffalo. Plays well when they are a heavy favorite this year, and they win by margin. You look at the New York Jets, 10-point favorite at home. They won 40-14. 9.5-point favorite versus Tennessee, 134-10. On the other side of the point, when Denver is a heavy dog, they haven't performed well. The one sample size that I can give on this one is Baltimore. They went on the road to go place them. They were a 9-point dog in that game. They lost 41-10. I do think Buffalo is the better team. I do think this could be a margin win, but as I see the line drop, I got a little bit of hesitance. So I went and looked at the first half, but I noticed that 73% of the line is in the first half for Buffalo. And so that gives you every indication you need to know. Maybe you have a little bit of lag here, a little bit of jet lag from this Denver Bronco offense, defense, what have you. They may come out a little bit sluggish here, and maybe Buffalo, and as we've seen in Orchard Park, they usually come out swinging in the first half. So with all that being said, I'm going to be taking Buffalo here, -5.5, first half as the play.
Yeah, I think you slipped and you said Baltimore, but I think that's a great segue point here to a game that I really want to correlate this to. As we mentioned, Denver started the season really, really elite ATS, have cratered since. And I think if you look at out of division on the road, it's really noteworthy stuff game to game. They've actually performed best in this environment at the NFC, beating the Bucs by emphasis early season and also hammering the hapless Saints in primetime midseason. But 2 games at AFC out-of-division opponents in recent history, 1 non-cover in Cincinnati. We had Cincinnati. Everybody was complaining that they got backdoored in overtime, blah, blah, blah. Denver was the right side. No way. Cincinnati had 500 yards of offense in that game and just shredded them and just didn't really come through until the final play. But going to the Baltimore game, which is the only game this year in recent history on this line structure for Denver, they were +8.5 precisely at Baltimore. And Baltimore came out on them heavy in the first half, 24-10, and did win 41-10 on a -8.5. We wouldn't talk you guys onto Denver in any capacity here. They really kind of capped out early season. As I said when I introed this, it's 11 a.m. on their body time. It's a rookie quarterback on the road in the playoffs. These type of environments, you don't want to back the dog here. And any comments on this game?
Just piggybacking off what Guns got into a little bit, I think it's really telling favorite versus underdog situation and kind of playoff teams. Denver was 8-0 when they were favored, 2-7 as an underdog, right? So they really struggled in that spot and against better teams. They went 2-5 against 2024 playoff teams. They beat the Bucs in week 3 and they beat the Kansas City backups in week 18, Carson Wentz. You could argue maybe they should have gotten that earlier win against Kansas City when maybe some chicanery was going on, but they just haven't functioned well in this spot all year. The only caveat I will say is Sean Payton maybe knows how to get it done against Josh Allen, and this is a different team, a different matchup, but he did get the win against them with the Russell Wilson, I believe, led Broncos when they were on a little bit of that spurt late last year. A lot of turnovers, really carried by the defense. So Payton's, the coach that you would want in that scheme to maybe muck it up and keep it close. But it's tough when you see that, again, how they're functioning, underdog versus favorite situation.
Yeah, and one final point on this. Obviously, we do have a lot more data on the Buffalo side in this generation in the playoffs. Josh Allen is actually 3-4 ATS at home in the playoffs in his career. 1-3 last 4. I think that's a nice buy low, to be perfectly honest. This caliber of quarterback, this environment in upstate New York in the cold in January, that should not be a cover spot for the opponent. And if you go through those games, I think they were actually fairly situational to the quality of the opponent, not so much the Bills. They didn't cover 2022 Wildcard weekend at home against Miami. Key point there, divisional game. And the other 2 non-covers were a loss in the divisional round, 2022 to Cincinnati. Obviously, Cincinnati didn't get there this year, but this is a Super Bowl caliber Cincinnati roster, particularly in recent years, having gone to the Super Bowl themselves. And speaking of Super Bowl quality, a divisional home loss last year to Kansas City, 27-24. So long-term, you want to buy low on Josh Allen in this environment. This is a totally different opponent. It is absolutely a Bills spot. I haven't gotten there officially, but damn, this sounds like a banger here, guys. Cash the first half. We also like -8.5 in the game. 4:30 NFC playoffs, the first NFC playoff game of this campaign. Interesting scheduling here. We get all 3 AFC out of the way before the NFC playoffs even open. I don't entirely understand why the scheduling is that way, but it is what it is. Packers, Eagles, 4:30 in Philadelphia. I got the hat on. I love my guy, Jalen Hurts, but we're looking at the total in this game. We'll go to Anthony first, under 45.5.
Yeah, and I think this is the three-way first of two on the show, which is going to be a lot of fun. And for me, welcome to another edition of Follow the Line functionality, right? In week one in Brazil, these teams had a closing total of 49.5. They soared over it. They put up 63 total points in that Eagles win. I think if I remember correctly, kind of the Packers clawing back into it. Jordan Love got banged up in that one. But since that time, really, the story here is that both defenses have improved. We actually have the number one ranked defense in terms of opponents' plays per game and defensive yards per play for Philly. So they're one in both of those spots, while Green Bay ranks 10th and 5th in those categories respectively, right? So top 10, and then obviously the number one down the stretch. And I think just to segue into that too, the Eagles have had one of the best defenses, if not the best defense, especially since their bye in week 5. They've only allowed 20 points since that point. And during that run, they've not allowed a first down on 44.9% of opponent possessions. That's good for the highest rate in the league, because the league average over that span is 30.9. So you're seeing a huge delta. Green Bay, they've almost been just as good as that Philadelphia defense, right? Obviously not ranking number one, but they're very much in the mix. And then you get the offensive kind of complement of this too, of what these teams want to do. And that really stands out, I think, is probably one of my favorite things from the game script. And obviously you could have a game plan where they get away from this a little bit, but I don't think they will. Both of these teams have had dominant years from their running backs, Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley. You saw what Derrick Henry did yesterday, right? It makes you wonder a little bit about the free agent running back market, because all three of these guys have had a massive regular season impact. Henry continued that yesterday, and these guys will too. Because Philly was first in the league over the course of the regular season, rushing the ball 55.75% of the time. Green Bay came in at third, 51.22%. So they both want to run the ball. They both have improved defenses. And I think you're going to see that same game script today, especially with Jalen Hurts coming off the concussion. So go low.
Yeah, go low, Guns. Any more comments?
I mean, he hit most of the points that are on my board here. You said it best. You're going against a Philly defense that's number one in most statistical categories. You got opposing scoring, yards per game, yards per play. Also, they're third in opposing touchdowns per game. I think both defenses really are great at opposing touchdowns per game and scoring it. So, you're looking at top 5 across the board, which is kind of remarkable too, because when you look at the pass defense, that's kind of been the bread and butter for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're number one in most of those statistical categories. However, they have a mediocre pass rush, which is kind of unheard of, because usually it's you have a great pass rush. The reason why you can stop the pass is you have a great pass rush, you put pressure on the quarterback, but that secondary for the Philadelphia Eagles is so good that they don't even need a pass rush. But these two teams just want to run the ball, and they're both top 5 rush defenses. So they're taking away their bread and butter on this one. I also have a prop on here. I like Josh Jacobs under his rush total here, 70.5. You're going against a Philly defense that can stop the run. He's gotten less touches and less rush yards. Hasn't surpassed 70 rush yards and 20 touches in 5 out of his last 6 games. And his average is 78 rush yards per game, and you see the total here at 70 and a half in a lot of those situations. So it gives you an indicator they're not expecting a lot here out of Josh Jacobs. So I like the under 70 and a half on his rush yards. But we're going to be talking about the total. Green Bay 5-2-1 to the under outside of the division this year, and Philly is actually 6-2 to the under at home this year. I just think this is going to be an absolute rock fight between two great defensive squads. Both want to run the ball. Both defenses can stop the run, so they're going to have to find other ingredients in the offense. Also, you got to consider the injuries that are going on. Both offenses are dealing with banged up. They're both banged up. Jalen Hurts just coming back from concussion protocol, been out for 2 weeks. Jordan Love is dealing with an elbow injury. Christian Watson, their most explosive wide receiver, is not going to be playing this game, so they're going to have to find other ingredients in the offense. This is going to be a rock fight here, so I like the under here, 45 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it. I'm also on this. Got 46.5 early week. That's why you follow on X, turn notifications on. Collaboration at 45.5 here. And, you guys, I mean, you said all of it, but I'll just jump up a couple more nuanced points. I think the really high point of emphasis here, it really is Jordan Love. And Jordan Love did get hurt last week, Guns. I think you mentioned that. There's injuries in this game throughout, but he is injured. But regardless of injury or not, This guy plays very, very spot-specific football. Inside the division, outside the division, road versus home. For whatever reason, the high totals with the Packers are almost exclusively inside of the division. When they play the Lions or the Vikings or even the Bears, the games just explode with points. But when they're playing out of division, it's really the opposite. And as you guys said, these teams played in Sao Paulo to open the year on Friday night, September 6th last year. Huge, huge over, and books are moving the line down. And I went through last year's playoffs to see if the books had a grip regular season going to the playoffs on this stuff, and they do. And I think it's really interesting stuff here. Last year in the first round of the playoffs, Philadelphia played at Tampa Bay. They had gone under in the regular season at Tampa Bay, 25-11 on a 43.5. Books did not move the line up in the playoffs, suggesting another under, and it did go under 32-9. Green Bay last year opened up in the playoffs at Dallas, and they went way over 48-32. Here's the key point there. Those teams had played in the regular season. Green Bay 31-28 over Dallas. Line regular season 43.5 moved up to 52.5 in the playoffs. So the books loved the over in the Dallas-Green Bay playoff game last year. And the second game last year for Green Bay at San Francisco did go under 24-21. You guys said it. Great defense. It's going to be a slow pace. It's going to be a real dogfight style game here. Best play of this game, collaboration official, a three-way. Take the under at 45.5.
One more thing on this one, and I saw it this morning. I think I saw it on ESPN. For what it's worth, all these teams are a little bit different from year to year, but it seems like Philly has this trend in the playoffs. When they get into the playoffs, every single playoff game, they're 7-1 to the under since 2018 on their playoff games. You can take that from what it's worth. It's just a trend here and there, but that just tells you how this Philadelphia team schemes in these games. They want to play slow, they want to control the clock, and they play great defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to that data point on Jordan Love, he's 8-2 last 10 to the under outside of the division. It's just going to be a low-scoring game. And 3 games this year for the Eagles at home on numbers under 47.5. Outside of the division at home, 3-0 versus the under. It's all over the under. We know unders are not sexy to bet. People want to have some beers and see a wild game. This game really is trending towards a low-scoring affair. By the under, and let's dominate. 8 o'clock in Tampa, Commanders-Bucks. Second rookie quarterback making his playoff debut. I think to the surprise of many, I don't think a lot of people had the Commanders coming into the playoffs this year at a really impressive 12-5 straight-up record. Of course, Jaden Daniels, just like Bo Nix, an older rookie. So I think that's certainly part of it. Having transferred in college 4 or 5 years, this guy's 23 or 24 years old. So the maturity is there, and I think that's a significant reason why we're seeing this. But we get the Bucks hosting the Commanders for the second time this year. They opened the season against each other just like Green Bay and Philadelphia. Coincidence? Maybe, but data abundance. We love to see it. Throwing it to the gun. We're not going low on this one. We expect a full-scale shootout in prime time tonight, over 50 or 50.5.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one at 8 p.m. in Tampa, Florida. I think we're going to see 2 quarterbacks really light up the scoreboard here. And you made a good point here with these older rookies. I think we're going to see a trend with this moving forward, knowing that these college players are getting bags when they go and transfer to some of these schools. But we're talking about the NFL. We're talking about Washington versus Tampa. And you have a 12-5 Washington team going up against a 10-7 Tampa team. But they've won. This Tampa team's won 6 out of their last 7 games. And then you got to look at how these offenses have produced. Both are strong offenses. You have Washington 4th in offensive scoring. They average 29.5 points per game. And you have a Tampa team that's 5th in offensive scoring, averaging 28.5 points per game. Both defenses have been susceptible of giving up points as well. You have Washington that's ranked 18th in opposing scoring. You have Tampa that's ranked 16th in opposing scoring. Washington has underperformed in the dog role, however, but they're 3-3 ATS this season with those covers were against Cincinnati, which historically struggles in the early season. Then you have Philly, who lost Jalen Hurts in the first quarter, and then Arizona, who struggles as a short favorite. So in those three covers that they had as a dog, those have asterisks by them, in my opinion. But Washington averages 26 points per game on the road versus 30 points per game at home. But that's good. We have 26 will get you to an over. The last time these two teams met back in September, week 1, Tampa won the game 37-20 as 4-point favorites. And the total was 42.5 in that game. Okay. That gives you a high indicator. Now you're seeing this line sit at 50.5. I've seen 51s hit the board right now. That is a huge total swing from game A to game B. Is what the books are trying to tell you is like, oh, we realize we realize these offenses are going to score some points. We need to inflate the total from the previous matchup, especially considering these teams are playing in the same spot as they were in week 1. Also, Tampa 8-0 to the over when the line is when the spread is between +4 and -4 for Tampa, and the over is 5-1 in Tampa's last 6 games. And Tampa is also 3-1 to the over versus the NFC East this year, scoring an average of 31 points per game versus that division. Also, Washington side 5-2 to the over as a dog this season, and this is tied for the highest total that Washington has seen on the road this year. The last time they've had a total this high, it was 50.5 versus Baltimore, and that went over. So all the variations, all the line correlations, and how these teams perform offensively give you everything you need to know. This is going to be a high-scoring game here on Sunday Night Football. Give me Washington, Tampa over the total 50.5 as the play.
The odds fellow alignment, I believe.
Yeah, we'll keep it short and sweet for me. I mean, because obviously we're covered this a lot, and the Sharks can give you a little bit more of a breakdown. I think for me, it's just the offenses, right? They ended up being two of the most efficient offenses in the league, which is not what we expected and where this started. And I think that's why you had it graded the way it was in week 1. You know, maybe we had that anticipation a bit for Tampa, but probably not for the Washington side, who really got rolling with Jaden Daniels, even though they have a defensive-minded coach in Dan Quinn, who's gotten out of the way and kind of let Lane Kiffin do his thing. For me, it's the red zone, right? So it's everything that Guns talked about, but just these two are so efficient. Tampa Bay scored a touchdown 31.5% of their possessions. That's 4th in the league. Washington scored a touchdown 30.7% of their drives. That's 5th in the league. They were two of the best teams in the red zone. And I think that's going to be massive in terms of, pushing this thing all the way up. So let's go high. I like 1 over, 1 under. It feels nice balanced today, and we'll get it done.
Yeah, just jumping off of it, a couple more points here. Guns was talking about the defense and the offenses here, but the statistics are really fantastic. Both of these offenses are just incredibly explosive. 5th and 4th in points, both top 6 in third down percentage, both top 5 in rush yards, both top 6 in total yards. And these defenses are not great at all. 18th and 16th in points against, 15th, 14th in third down percentage against. And I think a real noteworthy one, Washington is 30th in rushing yards against. So the run game is going to be wide open for Tampa Bay here tonight. And I think that does lean towards some rushing props. I don't know if Guns has anything on that, but a couple more comments on this one for me. As I mentioned in the previous cap of the Philadelphia game, we can go back to last year with Tampa Bay in the playoffs to see how books think of their matchups, regular season versus postseason. As I just said, they played Philadelphia in the first round last year. They had gone under before. The books kept the line low, and they went under again. But here's the key point. Round 2 at Detroit, they had the same line as this game, 50 or 49.5. High line, and the game did finish 31-23 over. And I think this is a really nice spot, as Guns mentioned, to buy both sides of this game. Tampa Bay is 12-5 versus the over, 2-1 versus the home over outside of the division. We've detailed this a couple times already. The game that they did go under against an NFC opponent at home outside of the division was a game against San Francisco, where Jake Moody missed 3 field goals. It would have otherwise gone over, so it was an outlier result. Probably should have gone over. And Washington is actually 5-3 versus the road over. Started 5-0 0-3 last 3. So I think it's actually a really nice buy low on Washington in this environment. And those unders were nothing like this game. One of them was a game against Spencer Rattler in New Orleans, and 2 divisional games. A game at Philadelphia, Thursday Night Football, Week 11, and Week 18, where all backups played. So you find an 0-3 sample for Washington, all outliers, all games with backups, division, all sorts of stuff. Totally different environment tonight. The numbers all over it, as Guns mentioned. This is coming up by 10 points at open from Week 1. This is precisely the movement I just stated in last year's playoffs between Green Bay and Dallas, where the line moved up 10 points from the regular season, and the game hit 80 points. I'm not saying we're going to see 80, but it's the exact same line structure. This game is going to be wide open. Take the over tonight at 50. Guns, did you look at anything on the rushing props market? Because when I was looking at this in terms of the defensive metrics, I found that to be incredibly interesting. The fact that Tampa Bay is 4th in offensive rush yards and Washington is 30th in defensive rush yards. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so if I suspect if I start looking at the Bucky Irving trends, those are probably the ones that I'm going to be keying in on. I mean, mind you, he had only nine touches and 62 rushing yards last time, but he was sharing the ball with Rashid White. So I think that's probably the direction I would go. I'd probably look at his touches and I would look at his yards on that one. I haven't done it. I haven't got paper to pen on this one. This may be a prop gun play, but you made a good point on that one. Is like that, you know, that I usually look where the weak points are in the defensive side, and you just brought it up. It's that. It's so, and I know Jaden Daniels. That'd be something I would look at for his rushing props on this one. I remember in that first game, he ran the ball a lot because it was his first game. I think he was a little bit nervous. He wasn't as comfortable as passing the ball and getting the ball out. He didn't want to make mistakes. Maybe a good little sneaky under in there on his rushing prop. We'll have to see on that one. I'll have to look at that one a little bit further. I think I'm going to be more susceptible of looking at the over props and trying to find those that versus trying to take under props in this game, knowing that if it correlates to a high scoring game, which I believe it's going to be, I'm going to be looking for key players in this lineup on both sides of the ball and try to figure out who is going to be the guy to go to, whether it be in the passing game, whether it be in the running game. But Bucky Irvin is going to be the one guy I'm going to start looking at first, and then I'm going to work my way out.
I would agree, and I just pulled it up while you were saying that. The game that was played in Week 1 between these two teams, Bucky Irving did lead Tampa Bay in rushing, 62 yards, but key point, he only had 9 carries.
6.9 yards per carry. Yeah,
6.9 yards per carry. And I'm remembering now, obviously this guy's a rookie coming out of, Oregon, I think? Is that Oregon?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, he came out of Oregon. So
rookie year, first game, he wasn't the feature back. That's the key point. It was Rashad White. Rashad White struggled, 15 for 31, 2.1 yards per carry. So Bucky Irving, obviously, throughout the course of the season, now getting primary handle of the rushing attack here from Tampa Bay. He's going to get more than 9 carries tonight. And we're not saying he's necessarily going to run for 7 yards per carry in this game, but I think he probably gets over 100 tonight. Guts, do we have a number on his yards in this game?
13, 14. Hold on 1 second. I think I may be doing a live prop.
Is it happening? You're watching him in the lab.
All right. Yeah. I'm taking over on his props. It's set at 91.5. His average is 66 rushing yards per game. This is way over his season average. And I think it's a lot predicated on the fact that in the last 4 games, he's got 89, 113, 68, 117, 152. So he's been the primary back. This makes perfect sense. I would shop around. I just looked at FanDuel. Usually FanDuel has.
It looks like Ibaka posted an 88. So there's probably
I always look at FanDuel and then I shop around. FanDuel usually has the market sharpness, so you can see where the money's moving. And I always go to that one first, and then I just go shop around. You go to BetMGM, DraftKings, you probably find a better number than this, but it's hitting in the 90s right now, and he averages 66 rushing yards per game. I think this is going to be a immaculate over here with Bucky Irvin on his rushing yards, and then I may make this the prop gun play.
I'm going to look to it on my end at a little bit of the Baker rushing. He was rushing a lot more. He set a career high for 378 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. I don't know if that's a Liam Cohen offensive thing, if that's him bailing out, being a little bit more aggressive, trying to get things going. But in a game that I think is going to have a pace to it, I wouldn't be surprised if Baker gets out there a bit as well.
Here's another great point for this rushing yards over for Bucky Irving. Another game which I think you can absolutely correlate to this game for Washington was a road game they played early season primetime at Cincinnati. Key point with Cincinnati, again, great offense, very similar to Tampa Bay. The game was an extreme over, 38-33. The rushing attack there for Cincinnati in that particular game, crazily enough, Chase Brown had almost an identical stat line to what we just said with Bucky Irving. 7 for 62. That's an 8.9 yards per carry. And Zach Moss had 12.58, 4.8. So it's almost identical. The second back who became the starting back throughout the season for the Bengals had minimal carries for extremely high yards per carry. So I think you're going to see this. I think Bucky Irving has a 100-yard game tonight. We love that. We will post that separately, but that is absolutely a great look. Love the over in this game. Great conversation. 8 o'clock, 50-50.5. I have 49.5 early week. Again, please follow so you get the early lines when is necessary. Tomorrow night, Monday Night Football playoffs, 8 o'clock ESPN. A lot of moving parts in this game. Vikings at Rams, not in LA, in Arizona. We hope everybody out in LA is finding their way through this. We know it is incredibly disruptive and an awful, awful situation. Sending you guys amazing vibes. If possible, stay strong out there, please. That all being said, in terms of the actual football game, bringing this to a neutral site is historically ambiguous and unpredictable. Neutral site playoff games are Super Bowls, not first-round games that are displaced due to natural disasters and catastrophes. The state of the Rams is hard to figure out. Will they get it together and rally, or are they totally and utterly disrupted? This is a rematch of a game played in SoFi Stadium, Monday Night Football, early season. It is a revenge game for the Vikings. The line, in my opinion, is very tight at -2.5. Our guy exactly says Monday Night Football over. I would agree with that. I do have written down here best look over, and I have written down tight number because I think this is playoff football. You're not necessarily going to get a blowout. The best over by far is the Washington one. There's some margin coming on that one, I think. But I think this is probably a good over. Of course, that game on October 24th, 30-20 Rams. A lot of yards, 386, 276. And the line is coming up. That was 46.5. This opened at 47.5, which would lean towards roughly 49 points. I think the displacement from the Rams would lean towards more points. Lack of focus, just a disruption. The defense might not be totally and utterly locked in. They're also not playing in front of their home crowd, where the noise factor might not be huge for the road team when they're playing offense. I think generally this leans to more points. Guns, any thoughts?
I agree with you on this one. I was just doing a little bit of correlation. So, I mean, this is a team that is in the dog role has been overs. When they're a favorite, they're an under team, right? The only non-covers that they had as terms of the total was Detroit. That was week 1. And if you remember, that was a banged up LA Rams team at that point. They didn't have Puka Nacua. I think Cooper Kupp might have got hurt in that game as well. And then you got to look at the Green Bay one. That's kind of an outlier there. And then, of course, they played San Francisco on Thursday Night Football, 12-6 on a 48.5 point total. And you remember that game? It was raining. It was sloppy. It was a Thursday short week game. Nobody wanted to be there. It was absolutely terrible in all accounts. But every other situation, when they were a dog, the total went over. Sitting here at 47.5, which is giving you that kind of that feel of where you see a lot of overs there with the LA Rams. And on the other side, you have a Minnesota team that should be a little bit motivated. Coming off that loss, could have got the first round bye. Now they have to go and they have to play a playoff game on the road. They're a 14-3 team, and they have to play a road game in the playoffs. It's quite remarkable. But that's how the seeding works in this one. They're an over team. as a short favorite too. So I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're like 5-2 to the over in those situations of anytime they're a favorite of six or less. So I think this is going to be one of those situations. We're going to see another high scoring game, 2 primetime games, and we're going to see points. I'm leaning towards the over. I haven't got there officially, but if there's a direction to go with this one, that is the way I would go with it.
Yeah, and just another side thought that it just occurred to me. When you think about Monday Night Football playoff game, we're not going to sit here and say the refs are really determining the outcome or like being told to do things. I think that definitely drives a certain level of cynicism in a person to think that way. But if there was ever a game flow that the league would love to see in a showcase Monday Night Football playoff game, it's certainly not 13-10, 17-14. They want points, entertainment. You got to remember, this is an international marketplace. People across the world are watching these games. There's one game on TV. They want a big, wide open, high scoring, back and forth affair. I think the over is probably the best look. Any comments?
I would love to get there on the under. Give me what I want to watch. What I want to watch is that 12-6 Thursday night football, Rams Niners. I want to see a recap of that. No, but I only say that half jokingly because I think with the Rams, that they're just an interesting team overall. I mean, when these teams first met, the Rams were 2-4 at that point, right? They get the W and then they go 8-2, including that win before they ended up resting their starters. So it was a big turnaround. And I think a lot of people would point to, well, it was the offense. It was Puka and Cooper actually returned to the lineup that night. But it wasn't. A lot of it was the defensive scheme. At that point, they were allowing a touchdown on 27% of their opponent's drive. That was 28th in the league. Over those next 10 games, they allowed 2.04 points per drive, which was 16th, it's kind of middle of the pack, and a touchdown on 22.2% of the drive, so good for 13th, right? So they improved those from being kind of dead last to in the top half of some of those defensive categories. And I think you saw that in some of the scores and in some of the plays they were, the way they were playing. But what would worry me is, kind of where that line is moving. And I think the Monday night thing that you guys mentioned is real, right? So if I was going to play this, what I would probably look at, and I'll break this down a little bit more tomorrow, is I probably lean a little bit of a first half under. And then I think it's a game more like maybe the Chargers and the Texans just played, where it can get out of hand a little bit in the second half and then pushes that thing all the way there. But tough spot with the neutral site. That's how I kind of would view the total, just given the Rams and their defensive mindset. And I think a lot of this is going to depend on what type of, do they take the training wheels off Sam Darnold, or do they try to protect him coming off that Lions performance when Aaron Glenn figured out, if I ramp up and go zero blitz or zero, whatever it's called, bring the house, and they were bringing a lot of pressure. They were playing one-on-one defense against even Justin Jefferson. What is that going to do to the Vikings offense? But I'm excited to watch this one. I think it's a really tight matchup.
I also think that Minnesota, I'm sorry. I also think that, like, you watched that game last night, was a 56.5 total versus Detroit. How many times did we see Minnesota drive the ball methodically down the field?
They should have.
Into the red zone, had wide. It was just Sam Darnold just had a bad night. It wasn't that they couldn't move the ball, they couldn't get the scoring range. It was just mistake after mistake after mistake. And I think
not taking three.
If there's something that could happen in this game, and the adjustments will be made. I know Sam Darnold doesn't play like that all the time. We've seen him methodically and productively move the ball down the field and score touchdowns. This was kind of an outlier. I think when we look at everything, and when I go back and review the box score and actually do this official write-up, I'm going to find that there were just so many misses on this one that are just outliers altogether. It's unlike that offensive production that we're used to with the Minnesota Vikings. And don't get me wrong, the Rams can score some points too. They have weapons. I just think this is going to be a little. I mean, you can say what you want about public market movement, it doesn't matter on this one. I think Minnesota is going to be highly motivated on the offensive side to have a little bit of a revenge angle here, just for their offense to get the ball moving down the field. And with the LA Rams resting all their starters last week, they're going to be fresh. They're going to be ready to go. And I think that you're going to see a high scoring affair here, especially two passing teams, by the way. And if you want to do something to the Minnesota Vikings defense, you have to pass because you ain't running the ball.
Yeah, I agree. And, just going through the playoff history of these teams, again, maybe slightly anecdotal, but in the playoffs, we don't have a lot of data to go on. So I was just looking at the Rams at neutral sites in the playoffs under McVay. Of course, that is 2 Super Bowls. So good for McVay. 2 Super Bowls, bro. You the man. But in those games, 2 unders. 13-3 against New England. That was the lowest scoring Super Bowl of all time. Super Bowl 53 in February of 2019. And Super Bowl 56, February 2021 against Cincinnati, 23-20. So, again, just thinking 2 unders, neutral sites. Now you see a line way higher. I think the over in this game is absolutely the best look. Wrapping it up on that, 41 minutes in the books, 4 games, I should say, about 10 minutes per game. It is NFL The Extra Points. We bring you guys the extra points in the NFL. I'm just finalizing this now. I'm going official. Bucky Irving over rush yards. This is DraftKings over 88.5.
I'm in.
Make that a 3-way collab.
3-way.
3-way collab. Also, 3-way collab. Green Bay, Philadelphia under 46.5 or 45.5. And another 3-way collab. Washington, Tampa Bay over 49.5, 50.5. The gun on Buffalo first half minus 5.5. And that is it. We appreciate you guys tuning in on this beautiful Sunday morning. It is Wild Card Weekend. The NFL, the Extra Points, Part 2, the big show, the shark, the gun, and the odds fellow. Have a great day. Bet responsibly. Let's cash these tickets. Let's dominate. Guns Picks. Pleasure as always. Close out some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat for joining us along the ride. Thanks for dropping the picks. Thanks for dropping the comments. And thanks for joining the show. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to the Gunsmith channel. Please like and subscribe to the Shark and Waters Nation channel on YouTube, and go follow us on X at Gunspicks, GUNZPICKS. Sharks in Sports N with an N, Sports 88, and the Odds Fellow on X. And you can check us out on there. We post plays, we post videos, we post clips, and you'll know every time that we're going to be doing a show. But that's going to do it here for the Extra Points. Till next time, let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the bowl. And as always, ooh, let's keep dancing. Yeah, bang!